How's it? And welcome to my channel. If you are new to my channel, hello, my name's Ben. If you've been here before, you'll notice that you can no longer understand me. And that is because I'm now talking the British tongue, the Queen's English, if you will. Due to the content of this video and to increase reach, I have opted for English. If you are new to my channel is very random. I do whatever I feel like, basically. I moan, talk a little rubbish, tutorials every now and then. And I usually do it all in Afrikaans, except for this one, and maybe the next one. I don't know, we'll see. So yeah, please don't correct my grammar, pronunciation, or any of that rubbish. It's not my first language. I do my best, however. But please tell me if I am talking nonsense or being non-factual, as a matter of fact. Nevertheless, my informative videos, I will probably be switching to English from now on, so bear with me. So today is exciting. A couple of new things I'm trying out, a couple of things I'm changing. I'm testing out new editing software for the first time. Well, the software is not new. I am new. I'm new to the software, you know what I mean. Anyway, I used to use Blender. Awesome software, but it used to take ages to render out a video of 5 to 10 minutes. It is very rubbish. It's very slow in that regard, but it was free. Basically, I'm using DaVinci Resolve now for this, which I understand is the industry standard. Also free, super awesome. Maybe I'll do a quick video on it someday as I learn. I don't know it that well yet, so let's see. Let me know if you would think that was something that you're interested in. You can look at that. Basically, my focus today would be on my new interest. If you know me, you will have seen that I've got a new interest called photography. Yes, so like everything else, I get interested, I research, I read up, I see what I can do, and then basically I end up seeing how cheap or free I can get away with it, and that's exactly what I've done in the past couple of weeks. I have actually built myself a camera from an old, well, it's not old, but it's one of these action cams, the fake GoPro. I call it the Flow Pro. In any case, and then I took a Minolta lens, old film camera. I think there's a 50mm, and I 3D printed an attachment, and I now have a hybrid digital film lens. Anyway, and it was surprisingly cool to build, and it turned out absolute rubbish. It cropped in a million times. Oh, you can't see there. Anyway, it cropped in a million times. It was now projecting a cool image onto a crap sensor, which is tiny, and I mean that just sucks. So it got me thinking, can you build these hybrids? What else can you do? Can I in fact take old lenses and put it on new cameras such as this one? And the answer is yes, but why would you want to? So most people say that it's cheaper to do so. You can pick up these old lenses for next to nothing compared to a brand new lens and all of that. So yeah, I've put this to the test somewhat. I've played around with it, and we are going to review that today. So the first thing I want to show you is I have printed a couple of brackets. This is a EOS Canon M to EF adapter, so I can use older lenses. There's not a real variety of lenses for the Canon M yet. Mirrorless, but that's okay. What I've also done is printed a adapter that fits onto a Canon FD lens from the 70s, 80s round. Now this is a super cool lens, used to be my dad's. and it's a 50mm prime lens, and it has a aperture down or f-stop 1.8. That is a pretty quick lens. That is awesome. I understand there's a version of this that even goes even lower, 1.4, 1.2 f, which is super cool. I mean, you could pick this up under $1,000, $1,500, and by bucks I mean rands, South African rands, not real bucks. We don't trade in bucks here. We use money like the rest of you. That joke will probably not even be funny. It's only South Africans going to look at this. In any case, so what I've done in comparison is the 50mm I've put on this camera, and I've compared it to the kit lens that comes with the Canon M50, which is a 15 to 45 zoom lens. So it's not a very good comparison, but I mean, the comparison is not in quality and focal length and you know, speed of the lens. It's basically, is it worth doing what I did? Is it worth going and comparing these lenses? So let's sommer dive right into it, I would think. Okay, cool. So the first image, basically I shot in a couple of you know, settings. Let me start by saying this. If you use a modern lens on a modern camera, you get all the benefits of mik and druk, even though you shoot in RAW and all fancy manual modes and whatever. You pretty much mik and druk if you want to. The old lenses, you have no control over the aperture or over the focus from your camera. It is all manual. One quick tip is on your camera you have a setting that's called what's it called? Peaking. Focus peaking. Switch that on. It depends on your camera. Adds like a red highlight lines over that is in focus or not, which helps a great deal with manual focus lenses. But in any case, so the first image I got here is basically, let me zoom. There we go. So basically the image on the left would always be the kit lens, and the image on the right would be the Canon FD lens. Cool. So here we can see it's a pretty cool photo. The quality in comparison is super close. If I just try and find, it's always so hard to find. There we go. So at this point, already what I can see from the 50mm on the right. So bear in mind, it crops slightly differently. It is a 50mm versus a 45 zoomed full frame film versus crop sensor lens and all of that. Go read up on it. I don't actually know that all too well, but in any case, if I do zoom in, I'm actually very, very surprised with the results and the crispness or the detail that the old Canon has produced. It is pretty detailed. This was all shot at ISO 100, and if I look at it, this photo was taken at 1/100th of a second. The kit lens in all of these comparisons were set to, I think, 6.5 f6.5, where I've varied the aperture on the manual lens to kind of tune in and see what I can match that, you know, can get that to the same one. That example I just showed you, it was shot at 1.8. It was shot at 1.8. Am I lying? No, I'm not. Well, good. Yes. So this one was shot in full open aperture, 16. It's very similar comparison. 16 versus the 6.5 on the left. Let me get there. And again, I mean, it's the same photo taken from the same distance. I'm very, very surprised at the clarity. It comes out a bit darker. The kit lens is a bit more exposed. I wouldn't say overexposed because it's a manual setting, but it's a bit more exposed, which is quite interesting. Yes. Let's get to some more detailed stuff. I've also shot a plant here. Shot a plant, you know, like a shot it with my camera. And again, man, from this zoom, you get quite cool in and out focus effect. And if I do zoom in, it is pretty comparable. I think in this exact instance, the kit lens performed slightly better. It was also shot at 1/100th of a second, which is pretty sweet. I like the fact that the manual lens can go 1.8 all the way to 16, and the only issue you have there obviously is that you've only got control over the shutter speed then. So if you want to have a bit of a longer exposure shot, you are pretty limited to how you can accomplish that, where you know the aperture change on the kit lens, well, maybe just in my experience, but it can go higher, for instance. So you're no, whatever, maybe I'm talking rubbish, it's just what I'm experiencing now. Also, one thing I need to mention was that I completely forget. Anyway, so the next shot I want to compare is, there we go, zoom out, and this is a near field focus. And you can see there's slight differences in the background in the bokeh. Again, that is all to do with the F setting at the time and how close I am to the subject and all of those little thingies. But again, yeah, a little bit overexposed on the left, but I'm going to call it the vintage lens, kind of performed quite well. If I go to a second comparison on the plant where it's further away again, I'm going to try and get these both in frame, and if I zoom up, then foot photo, if I zoom up quite sweetly there, cannot ever find it. You'll see that it does compare quite well. I'm very impressed. This is probably the photo that came out the closest, in my opinion. The noise levels are pretty much the same. The focus is pretty much the same. It is actually very comparable. And remember, I've done no editing on these photos. They are straight from Canon. I mean, obviously, if I edit the one, the other one will edit quite similarly. So this is purely a out of camera experience, if you will. Again, with the near shots, if I just zoom in on the one on the left, try and get that little flecky there. Man, so many buttons too. New software is always when to hold shift, when to click and leave, and yeah, man, not for me. Where's this thing now? There we go. Now I lost this one again. There we go. Not a good comparison, but in any case, zoom out. Can just line these up. So yeah, the thing is that obviously the lenses are slightly different. You won't get exactly the same photo, but as with all the other ones, it is quite impressive. One thing that I do need to show, which I thought was pretty remarkable. This is now both the same lens, the left and the right hand side, both the manual lens, the Canon FD lens. shot at aperture 1.8, and maybe the experts can tell me why this is, but at this aperture I can get away with a full 1/4000th of a second shot. That is a flippin' quick shot. You will get absolutely no motion blur from that at all, and that's what I was mentioning earlier. If I need to have this shallow depth of field with a bit of motion blur, I don't think I can accomplish that on this lens, because if I drop that shutter speed on this particular example, it'll be so overexposed, and I'm already at an ISO 100. So I think that there are some limitations to these things, obviously. But again, this photo came out so crisp for a lens that has been in the family for 50 years, roundabout. Yeah, 40. Check that out. It is pretty awesome. Very happy with that. So that concludes my brief test. I'm no scientist. I don't do this on a professional level at all. This was purely for fun. I mean, I thought, how fun could it be to try and mount these old lenses, and it is absolutely fun to shoot with. So in conclusion, is it worth it? If you are what we in Afrikaans call a mikkendruk, if you are a mikkendrukker, then a point and shoot, I think is the translation, it's not for you. It's not for you. Your photo's going to suck, it's going to be blurry, it's going to be all weird, out of focus, or exposure is going to be all wrong. But if you are keen in the art of photography and learning it and experimenting with it like I am currently doing, it is super fun. It is super fun. It is incredible to think that something designed and manufactured 40 plus years ago is still on par. And don't get me wrong, there's lenses that are rubbish from that same period, and there are lenses that are much better, and obviously the price range will determine that. But yeah, if you can get your hands on old lenses, and you have the patience to play around with it, please do. It's much fun. And yeah, so that's my story. Thank you for watching. If you like this type of content, please let me know in the comments, subscribe, like, all of those stuff, and I will then see you in the next video. Thank you.